Hi, this is Anna Imagination, day 3 of the 8 weeks to inner peace. Today, we are going to be talking about the 8 stages of perspective growth. When we are born, we are in a perspective. The perspective is the determining viewpoint of our autonomy, authority, and our ethics. Now, ethics do not come into play until the 6th perspective. So the first 5 perspectives is our relationship between autonomy and authority. Autonomy is the individual acting as itself, for itself, independent, and authority is who has the power to utilize control over the self or other people. So in stage 1, we call this the caregiver stage. And in stage 1, authority belongs to the caregiver. The best way to think on this would be an infant who views the mother as the authority. The infant views all of decision making, the ethical right, wrong, the final word, as it were. Let's call this the final word, as belonging to the caregiver. In this case, in most cases, it's the mother. So it's the final word. In the second stage perspective, the authority is shifted from the caregiver over to the tribal leader. In this stage, the tribal leader usually is the head of the household. And that would, in traditional cases, be the father. So this is where we all enter that stage where we realize that mother no longer has authority. It's really the head of the household who makes all the decisions and is the governing body. This can also be defined as an adult who is in this second stage perspective as the church makes all those decisions, or a gang leader makes all those decisions, or a mother in a coven gets to make all those decisions. It's very much there is a single tribal ruler, and that tribal leader is the one with the overall authority. The third stage perspective is, I like to call this the independent stage. This is when autonomy bursts into existence. This is when you discover your autonomy, and the first thing you do is take the authority and you run with it. 3-year-olds are notorious for this. This is what we see when we realize I am the self. I exist. It's like we discover the ego. It becomes the hyper-independent stage. We grab the authority from the leader and we run around with it, making Lord of the Flies happen. This is actually a very healthy stage. The purpose of this stage is to allow us to figure out who we are, define the self, and we are supposed to walk away learning the importance of community, law, and order. We are supposed to be isolated on walkabout, having a lot of leeway to the point of keeping us safe, but nevertheless, to give us the leeway, we must exercise our independence. In most cases, this is where perspective abuse begins. We have parents who come down, very strict parents, saying you're not allowed to be independent. I have the authority. Now you have a parent who is in a power struggle with the child who's trying to define their autonomy, but instead they're being told what to wear, where to go, what to eat. And the concept of the 4th stage perspective, which we'll get to in a minute, which is law and order has the authority, is immediately brought down really hard in some cases on the 3-year-old, to the point where the 3-year-old is suppressed and the 3-year-old has no ability to define his autonomy. What ends up happening is the child then gets stuck at stage 3, forever in constant need of defining their autonomy and not being able to do so. These are the people who grow up to be narcissists. These are the people who grow up to be bullies. These are the people who grow up to be very abusive, who seem to be void of emotion, who seem to be void of empathy, because they are stuck in stage 3, which is complete independence, autonomy, and authority. That is one example. The 4th stage is when authority shifts from stage 3 on the individual over to law and order. It's when the justice system comes into existence in the mind and in the perspective of the individual. And the individual leaves stage 3 suddenly hypervaluing the law and order. This is because that individual just left Lord of the Flies, where they saw a life without any law and order. So, like a swinging pendulum that went this way, now it's going to swing all the way over here and it's going to cling to law and order. And this is stage 4 perspective. Our entire society is based off of stage 4 perspective, where law and order has all the authority at the detriment of the autonomy. Stage 5 is what I call the entrepreneur stage. It is when a person finds the proper balance of authority and autonomy equally. It's when they realize, yes, law and order and justice have its place. However, you don't have to treat me like dirt. I too can create law and order, and I can self-govern. At stage 5, we gain the ability to self-govern. This is where corporate America exists. This is where entrepreneurs start to exist, is stage 5 perspective. This is why so many people are happy with their 9-to-5 job and they never think about becoming their own business owner. And why some people think about owning their own business, because those people who own their own business have entered into stage 5 perspective, while the people who are still working 9-to-5 jobs are still savoring that, not the law and order perspective, stage 4. Stage 6 is what I call the hippie stage. This is when ethics becomes a variable in this balance. At stage 5, when you max out stage 5 perspective, one of two things happen. You pretty much level out, or you reach a realization that your actions have a direct effect on the planet and other people. And that's when you develop ethics. Now, autonomy, authority, and ethics are in the mix. But ethics has not yet figured out its place, so it's maxed way out, while authority and autonomy kind of take a back seat. This is stage 6 perspective. This is why I call it the hippie stage. This is where a person overvalues the opinions of everybody. So stage 6 spends a lot of time getting everybody's opinion on every matter. And they try and make sure that every voice is heard. As ethical and as honorable as that is, it's not realistic, and it ends up destroying the autonomy, and the self suffers. Stage 6, like stage 5, is a transitional stage, a big one. It is when you leave the matrix. It is when you completely step out of the system and you start to see from an outsider how the system shifts and moves. Stage 7 requires an understanding that a balance of ethics, authority, and autonomy are required. The importance of autonomy increases so that you start shutting out all the voices. Even though you respect them and you save space for them, you do not, under any circumstance, sacrifice yourself for the opinions of others. This is stage 7. Stage 8 is when you achieve the ability to see all of the perspectives as one magnificent dance. And you start to realize that each perspective has its own language, and that you can actually decode each language, each perspective, and then you can walk among all the different perspectives and communicate with all of them so that the communication barrier between perspectives ends. It is astounding to hear. It is really, truly astounding. Most people reach stage 3, 4, and 5, and they stop. They do not grow. The majority of people in a certain perspective determines the majority of our societal perspective. Our current societal perspective is stage 4. The majority of people out there stalled out at stage 4 and have not moved on. We are now seeing a flux where the majority of people are shifting to stage 5. So now we have this in-between stage, complements of the millennial era, where we are seeing more entrepreneurs, and that's on the rise, and that 9-to-5 job is going away. It's definitely decreasing. And the reason why is because millennials' standards, millennials who are stages 5 and 6, are starting to value autonomy and ethics now equal to authority. And now they're saying things like, why does my job have to treat me like garbage? I'm not a maggot. That is stage 5 mentality. That is stage 5 perspective. What is supposed to happen in a healthy environment with a healthy society is when we are 1 year old, we are supposed to be at stage 1. And when we are at stage 2, age 2, we are supposed to be at stage 2. And when we are at age 3, we are supposed to be at stage 3 perspective. We are supposed to outgrow stage 3 by the time we get to stage 4, age 4. And at age 5, when everyone is asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're going, I want to be an actress. And you're quoting some great thing that you want to be. That is age 5, stage 5. That's when you start thinking about all the things you want to be. And you are already outside of the box with some great career that you want to pursue. But abuse happens. Perspective abuse happens. A teacher or a parent steps in and says, you can't be that. That's not practical. That's not good enough. No, you're going to be a doctor. And suddenly you have stage 4 prospective parents telling stage 5 child what they should and shouldn't be. That creates perspective abuse. And it does a whole lot more than that. Now, it is a common belief that our entire system is made up of one perspective, our point of view. This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. We have 3 perspectives inside of us. We have our ego's perspective, our ethical perspective. This is the perspective that emanates who we are. Now, I just read to you or gave to you 8 different perspectives. Which one of those is you? Which one of those did you cringe at? And which one of those descriptions did you go, that's the one that resonates with me? That's your perspective. That is your ethical perspective. When I was 5, I was 6th stage perspective. Good God, when I was 4, I was 6th stage perspective because I was all about animal rights. Animal rights, the planet. That was me at age 4. So at age 4, I was already stage 6, but my father was a stage 4. So I got a lot of perspective abuse. So this is the stuff we're going to be covering in this, is where is your perspective abuse and how is it in relation to your ethical abuse? So when you look at your ethical perspective, where are you with your ethics? Which one of those? If you need help with this, let me know. The list is down below. So you can scan down below that list, figure out which one resonates the most with you. Now, everyone has what I like to call a combination. This is combination theory. It's one of the things that I invented to help show you. It's a tool. It's just a tool. It's not a label. But I want to show you basically what's going on in this bigger picture using perspective psychology. So this is how this works. Your ethical perspective is your first number, okay? So we're going to call that X. Your second number is going to be your subconscious mind's perspective. I'll be going over that in a moment, and that's Y. And the next number, your third number in this combination, is your environmental perspective, okay? Now, the most important perspective is yours, the ethical perspective, okay? So you are the only person who gets to determine this. This is purely going by your intuition and by your vibrational frequency. Which one of those feels right to you? Which one makes you feel all warm and cozy and fuzzy that makes you go, this is where I am? That's great. That is your first number. For me, I am an 8. The second number, your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind perspective. And this is where things get sticky. Your subconscious mind perspective is the perspective that you were abused at when you stopped subconsciously growing. At some point, your parents emanated 2, 3, or 4 perspectives, most likely. And when you behaved outside of their perspective, they abused you, scolded you, physically or sexually assaulted you. Whatever happened to you, not discrediting it, but whatever they did to you to teach you that it's not safe to grow, it's not safe to be different. That was the message that was received by your subconscious mind that stopped all growth. Your subconscious mind is most likely stuck at 2, 3, or 4. If you received physical or sexual abuse, 3. All physical and sexual abuse occurs from 3s. All of it. If you experienced narcissistic abuse, 3. 100%. Abuse from stage 4 looks like political abuse. This is beautiful. This is simple, beautiful. Religious abuse is stage 2. So if you received religious abuse from your parent, where you were told you had to be a certain religion, you experienced stage 2 perspective abuse, which means you are most likely a 2 in your subconscious mind when your mother is around. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you had narcissistic parents, if you were sexually or physically abused, stage 3. And if you received political or societal abuse, you have to get a 9-to-5 job, you have to marry this man, patriarchy abuse, this is stage 4, 100% stage 4. Stage 5s do not abuse. Stage 5s realize that autonomy has value. And this is why stage 5s are transitional, because they're kind of sticky. And they start to develop ethics. Stage 6s are condescending sometimes, and that's about it. So stage 6s is where pacifism begins. And I hypothesize this is where vegan and vegetarianism begins, because they start to value animal rights. So this is where your ethics really start to set in. So you don't see really any abuse from stages 6, 7, and 8. Now, whatever you are, we have a high function and a low function. This is true of everyone. This is when you wake up in the morning and you feel refreshed. This is when you're hangry, when you're tired, or when you're stressed. We all always drop 2 levels when we are low function. So if you are a 6, that means you drop to a 4. If you are an 8, then you drop to a 6. If you are a 5, you drop to a 3. So you might be a 5, an entrepreneur, a CEO, but when you drink alcohol, become hangry, become tired or stressed, you become a stage 3. And if you are violent, instead of somebody who avoids and withdraws, then you most likely will become a violent drunk or a violent hangry person or a violent stressful person. But when you're rested, you'll jump up to a 5. I like to think that when you get to 6 and 7, you get out of the danger zone, especially 7. Like, you stop abusing at 7. I love 7. Now, if you are stuck with a subconscious mind at a lower level, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. You can always go back to that behavior. So if you are a level 6 or a 7 and your subconscious mind is a 2, then you can drop down to a 2 when you're triggered. This is what a PTSD trigger is you have to, I got to conform. That's a behavioral defense. It's you're there, something happens, I got to conform. And you jump right over to whatever perspective you need to be in to make sure you stay safe. That's why when people leave the room, you can relax, is because, I don't have to fit myself into a 3 or a 4 anymore. People who are between the stages of 1 and 4 hate everybody who's above them. 2s hate 3s, 3s hate 4, 4s hate 5s. 4s think that everyone below them, they understand and they get. 3s, everybody under them, they get. Actually, 3s just isolate Lord of the Flies kind of a thing. 2s absolutely understand 1s. More than 3 gaps between perspectives and you start to not understand them anymore. You forget. So 4s struggle to understand 1s. 4s can relate to 3s, but they hate 5s. But they really get 3s. They might even smile and go, I remember when I was a 3. You see that a lot. 3s will look at 2s and go, I remember when I was a 2. And they'll look at 4s going, I hate 4s. And then they'll be really condescending to 1s. 5s aspire to be 6s. Almost always. They're either very happy where they are or they aspire to be 6s. Everyone who is 5, I can't say everyone, 5s and 6s hate everybody below them. 5s immediately shun 1 through 4s. They're like, ignorant, closed-minded, conformists. And they are conformists. They are conformists. That is what they are renowned for, their conformity. These 4 love their boxes. 5s break the box. That's why they're transitional, because they are fighting the box. They're like, get me out of the box. That is the big difference between 4 and 5. 4 is, no, my box. I got to put everyone in the box. 3 is running around like Lord of the Flies. 2 is saying, everyone needs to be in the box. And everyone has to fit into 4's box. And 5 gets to be there and says, I just got to be me, because they have autonomy. 6s aspire to be 7s, 8s, 9s. 6s just want to be and grow. They're very ethereal. They're starting to pick up on the energy. They sneer at, that's not the right word, but they do look down on 5s because they view a lack of intelligence as inferior. At 7, you realize that there isn't a hierarchy. You realize that it's just a stage of growth. That's 7. You realize that no one is better than everybody else at 7. You realize that it's just your perspective, that we need all of the perspectives. And at 8, you see how we need all of the perspectives. Because at 8, I can't remember how 5s think. I can't remember how 4s think. I can't do the tasks that 4s and 5s do. I'm an 8. I can't do that. I'm a visionary. That's what 7s and 8s are. 6s, 7s, and 8s are visionaries. 5s and 6s are cultivators. They are the teachers, the healers. You can grow on to be another one. Just because you're a 6 when you're 5 years old doesn't mean you're going to be 6 your entire life. There's also your growth priority. This I love. Do you prioritize your comfort or do you prioritize your growth? Or do you flex between the two? I prioritize growth, which means I will never stop growing. Now, right now, I got to stage 8 and I'm normalizing and I'm enjoying stage 8 and I have a list of things I want to do to get caught up. But I know as soon as I have all of my milestones completed, I'm going to want to move on to stage 9. I know this. I am going to want to grow until I die. That is because I prioritize growth. Now, not everybody prioritizes growth. So if you're a 5 and you get to 5, you're probably going to be at 5 for a while until you prioritize growth. And then you're going to push into 6. It's an amazing journey. You cannot go backwards. You can only go forward. A person who reaches 3, 4, 5, 6 might stall out and say, I'm good. Now I'm where I'm going to be. I'm just going to enjoy life. And they prioritize comfort over growth. That's okay. That's just how they are. But you have your ethical perspective. Now, the problem is that subconscious perspective is not aligned. When the subconscious perspective is not aligned with your ethical perspective, this creates the emotion cognitive dissonance. When cognitive dissonance is around, you end up with significant pain and mental illness because your body, your brain, your subconscious mind has to conform your behavior to a perspective that is not your own. This is where mental illness comes from. You have an ethical perspective that says you are a 6. That means ethically, I believe in peace. I believe in respect for all. But if your father is a 3 who's abusing you, that's going to seriously contradict your ethics. And you're being forced to mimic that behavior. How much trauma do you think you can endure before your brain starts to conform you? It's going to require a mental illness, a behavioral defense, to transfer your behavior so it mirrors your abuser to keep you safe. That's what a behavioral defense does. So now you want to be at a 6, you're being aching and pulling toward that 6, but you're being forced at a 3. This is perspective abuse. Now you grow up and you're now stuck at 3. Your combination is 6, 3, and probably 3 or 6, 3, 4. That is not aligned. An aligned combination is one where your subconscious mind grows with your ethics. That's what's supposed to happen. But it didn't. Most chances, most likely, your perspective was held back while your ethics grew. So you have misalignment. So the purpose of the healing garden is to grow your subconscious mind so that it matches and is aligned with your ethical perspective. That is what we are doing here. That is what all of this is. We are going to be walking you through everything you need to get your subconscious mind, wherever it is, up to the same growth level as your perspective, as your ethical perspective. Now, the third number in this combination is your environmental perspective. The environmental perspective is very much influential over whoever has the most authority. So if you live alone, your ethical perspective is going to determine your environment. But it's going to have some interference with your subconscious mind, doing self-sabotage, going, oh, that's dangerous. We got to act like we're 3s or 4s. But if you live alone, you have most likely a 6-4-6 or a 6-3-6 with catalysts setting off your subconscious mind. So if you live alone, you might see your subconscious mind naturally healing. That's healing. Healing is bringing your subconscious mind in alignment with your ethical perspective. That is what healing is. If you live with a partner, let's say your partner is a 4 perspective and you are an ethical 6 and your parents abused you at 2 and 3, it means you are at a 2 when your mama's around, in my example, or a 3 when your father or your brother is around. But when you're around your husband, you're going to be a 4, but you are a 6. So your combination when you are home with just your husband and your family is probably, as an example, 6, 4, 4. That's still not aligned. And the reason why it's 4 is because he most likely has the authority. And as a result, because he has the authority, he's determining the environmental perspective, which is his 4. But let's say he takes a run to the store. He goes to the store, and the environmental perspective now defaults to the next person in authority, which is you. So now, as a 6, you might go, oh, I can breathe, because you're finally aligned for that brief moment to your own ethical perspective. So when you heal, this is why we lose people, by the way. This is it. Because when you change and when you grow, you are most likely leaving behind 2s, 3s, and 4s. And they don't like anyone over them. So when you move on to your 5 and you quit your day job and you go off and you go get your own business, your level 3 and level 4 mom and dad are probably going, well, I can't believe you're doing that. You're unemployed now. You're going to fail. They don't understand that. You cannot be wealthy or rich if you are stages 1 through 4. This is the poor people stage. You cannot be rich if you are stages 1 through 4 unless you inherited the money. Trump is a stage 3. Trump is absolutely a stage 3, by the way. Biden is a stage 4. It's amazing because when you start to see it, you can start to see it and you're like, oh. So when I go to the grocery store, I'm entering into stage 4 territory. Actually, no, I'm in New York City. So the average here is stage 5 and 6, depending upon where you go. You go down to Greenwich Village, you go to the village, and it's stage 6. I love going to the village. You go to the village and you are free because it's stage 6. But you go over to the Upper East Side or the Upper West Side, now you're at stage 4 and stage 5 and you have to behave yourself. But then you go over to the East Village and you're at like stage 5 again. You go over to Harlem, that's a stage 4. Stage 3, stage 4. You go over to the Bronx and that's stage 4, stage 5. But you go to Brooklyn, Brooklyn is 5 and 6. I live in Brooklyn. So I'm in a good spot in Brooklyn. I'm in 5 and 6. I don't spend enough time in Queens to know. I have no idea. I have no idea what Queens is. I have no idea. But this is like you go into the middle of upstate New York, stage 3, stage 4. You go to the grocery store, you get on a public transport, that's going to be stage 4. Every time you get into a taxi, you're in stage 4. So the environmental perspective shifts. And you can cater that around your own needs in your own household and environment. So when you build your self-care regimen, your self-care cocoon, you are actually building yourself your own environmental perspective to mirror your own perspective. That's why this is such a big deal. This is why you need your self-care regimen and your cocoon, because it's going to be the place where you can finally go, yes, I'm at stage 6. I can be myself. This is my judgment-free zone. Foundationals are the people between stages 1 through 4. These are usually people who value comfort. They do not value education or growth, which is why we see a significant decline right now in our education system, is because the people who are in charge, 3s and 4s, don't value education. Once we shift over to 5 and 6 perspective, education is going to become a massive priority, and we're going to see a spike in our education system. Oh, I cannot wait. We are, as I said, on the edge of 4 fading out and 5 taking over, and then it's going to push on to 6. The 6s are the ones who are going to solve our fossil fuel problem. The 6s are going to solve our global warming problem. It's really important that we get there really fast because the planet is in serious, dire hurt. For the record, my clients are stage 5 and above. I will not work with anyone stage 4 or below. If you're in stage 4, I have to fight the patriarchy way too much for people to comprehend this material. And then it becomes a battle of, you're wrong, you're right. And I'm like, we're the stage fives. I need autonomy here. So I will not work with anyone who is stage 5 or higher. That's like, but again, that's ethical perspective. Now, your subconscious mind, unfortunately, may have been abused to do 2, 3, and 4. Now, in my case, I love using me as an example because it covers so much. My mom was a 2. I had religious abuse from my mom at 2. I had my patriarchal abuse from my father at 4. And I had my brother who was beating me at 3. So the question is, which one is my subconscious mind? The first question is, and this is it, who abused me the most? Which was the most trauma? And then I go by the smallest number. So for me, my subconscious mind was 3. My mother, when she was around, I didn't really have, my mom abused me as far as the religious abuse goes, but it was so small. It was so minute in comparison to 3 and 4 that it was nothing. 3, I was at 3 for a while. My subconscious mind was at 3. And then it developed into stage 4, and that took me a very long time. Like, I was battling stage 4 perspective in 2020, 2021. And then when I finally got it so that I was aligned at 666, I was finally able to grow to 777. And then I was able to grow again to 888. So I've been aligned for 2 years now. I've been aligned for 2 years. And once you become aligned, mental illness goes away. The fear system shuts down. The subconscious mind cooperates. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. In fact, this is what I love. If you are inconsistent, ready for this? If you suffer from inconsistency, that is because your subconscious mind has you at a 3 or a 4, but your ethical perspective is at a 5 or a 6. So you don't know, your subconscious mind is trying to figure out which perspective to follow. A perspective is a set of behavioral rules. So you have your set of behavioral rules, and then you have the abuser's set of behavioral rules. And your subconscious mind is going, well, we need to keep you safe, and your behavioral rules are dangerous. So the subconscious mind wants to keep you on the abuser's perspective, which is 2, 3, 4. But the identity is strong. And the identity will say, no, I'm here. I am somebody. If you are a 6, if you are a 5 or a 6, your autonomy is going to be loud. So your autonomy is not going to sit quietly in the dark. If you have an ethical perspective of 4, you're probably going to be quiet and obedient with your abusers because you have no autonomy. But if you are inconsistent, it means you've got autonomy, you have your own self-government, and you're fighting for yourself. That's a good thing. That is a very good thing. I love inconsistent people. It means they're already fighting back. It means you have autonomy, which means you're already at 5 and 6. So you have a lot to work with. It's a good thing. So that's your 5 and 6. That is you at your self-governing autonomy. That's your ethical perspective. But your subconscious mind is going, but that's dangerous. No, I am somebody, but it's dangerous. So you are fighting with your subconscious mind. That's why you're inconsistent. When you have things right where you want it and you're doing great and you're paying your bills and you're attending classes and you're doing your homework and everything's going great and your grades are high, that's your autonomy winning. And then your subconscious mind self-sabotages, takes over and says, that's dangerous. And then you fail, you don't show up, your grades slip. That is your subconscious mind taking over. And your autonomy is going to be like, no. And then it's going to fight for dominance. So you have this power control, basically. You have a power control happening between your subconscious mind's perspective and your autonomy, your identity, or your ethical perspective. They're fighting each other. So take a look below. There are the 8 perspectives. Figure out which one is your ethical perspective. It is the core one, the one your identity makes fuzzy happy. Yay! And I mean, if it doesn't evoke passion and happiness out of you, it's not you. It has to evoke passion and happy. Passion and happy, that's you. So take a look at the 8 perspectives down below. Which one makes you passionate and happy? Now, you might want to aspire to be 7 and 8, but I can tell you right now, you're not an 8. Because if you were an 8, you'd be able to know all of this without me telling you. 8s do not need this explained to them because 8s can see it. So unless you can already see it, but if you can see it, then you would have cured it. So you can aspire to be an 8, but you're most likely a 6 or a 5 or a 6. You're most likely a 5 or a 6. So what that feels like is when you long or you pine to be something, when you're like, oh, definitely, I want to be that. That's fine. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. That is your ethical 8. That is your ethical 7. But you're not there until you're aligned. You have to be aligned to claim it. The 6, I'm sorry, not the 6, the subconscious mind's perspective. That's the one where your abuser has you stuck at. So there's 2 ways you can do this. The first one is, which perspective makes you the most angry? If you have a perspective down there that really riles you up the most and makes you really angry, that would be the one that abused you the most, and that's the one where you are probably stuck. The other way you can look at this is, which one do you recognize as the one you often struggle with? For me, when I was 6'4", I struggled with 4. I knew I struggled with 4. I was constantly going, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. If you have shouldn't voices in your head, that's your subconscious mind telling you which perspective you should be at. That's all that is. Your guilt system is you telling you which perspective you should be at. That's all that is. So once you find out which perspective your subconscious mind is at, that tells us a couple things. We know how far you have to go. We know, and if you're all the way down to 2, don't worry about it. It goes fast once you know how, and that's what we're going to cover. So don't get discouraged, okay? You might have a couple of them in there. If you have a couple of them in there, you're probably going to have to, we're going to start at number 2. We're probably going to start at all of them and go through them. Each perspective has a milestone. You have to reach certain milestones, certain life lessons at each one of these perspectives. Once you check it off and the lesson is learned, you're good and you go into the next one. You are supposed to learn these things when you're a toddler. By the time we are 8 years old, we should be at stage 8. Oh, that's right. That's how badly we have done fucked up. When we are 8 years old, we should be at perspective 8. We should be walking around with superhumans, all 8 years old, going, I understand, respect, and see all the different perspectives and communicate with all of them. That is where our future will be. The question is, how long will it take us to get there? But that is what waits for humanity. That's what's ahead. And my God, will it be beautiful. Now, that all being said, once you figure out which of those perspectives, there's going to be a milestone. We're going to go through the checklist, and you're going to be able to hit all the checklists. Once we do that, you're going to be able to evolve each perspective into the next stage accordingly. So we will grow up your subconscious mind in a healthy fashion, the way it was supposed to be. Now, when this is done, it will restore the balance of what was done to you as a child when you were basically suppressed with perspective abuse. We're going to eliminate all of this. It's going to be beautiful. I love doing this with people, okay? That pretty much wraps up perspective psychology. This is a lot. This is a lot of information. I recommend going back to this a couple times. Message me if you need help. Email me if you have any questions at all. I am available. I expect to get people going, I went over your perspective psychology and my brain exploded. I need help. I got it covered. I got it. So you're going to listen to your intuition. Where do you want to be? Where in your heart are you? And if you're saying you're at 8, go with it. Go with it. Go with it. Your intuition, don't let me perspective abuse you. Okay? Don't ever let me perspective abuse you. If you feel you're an 8, if you feel you're a 9, then you claim it. Okay? You claim it. All right? And then go back and really, for your subconscious mind, figure out. And you might have 2 or 3 answers. That's okay. That's all right. You may have been equally abused. Don't lose sweat over this. Don't lose time over it. This is not a precise science. This isn't science at all. This is just a tool to help you see what your coordinates are. This is finding your coordinates So you can say, well, I'm located at here and I want to be here. Boom, there you go. There's your healing journey. You want to be ethical 6. You want a life that emanates ethical 6. Got it. But you can't get there because you're stuck at ethical 2. That's your problem. Now let's get you there. Welcome to your destination and your X marks the spot. This is where you actually are. Now we know what you want and what your problem is. And now we can create a healing journey path to get you exactly where you want to go. That's what we're going to be doing here. Okay. So, any questions at all? If you need to rewatch this video, do so. Bombard me. I'm available on text, I'm available on email. And if you need a one-on-one Zoom, absolutely let me know and I will be there. We'll jump right in and I will pick this apart with you. Okay. And if there's any confusion at all, when you're done, you should have 3 numbers. Again, that's that ethical perspective, subconscious mind perspective, and environmental perspective. Okay. And the goal is to get these 3 aligned. That is the goal. That is the purpose. Okay. That is pretty much it. And all my information is below. Well, the 8 perspectives are below. So thank you so much. And you should be all set. I will see you soon. Thank you.